You're managing what you always do, but your brain feels scattered and you just can't seem to pull it together. The Busy Brain Do-Over from Steady State Co. is your space to recover, reset, and restart, proud of how you show up again. Because you're not the problem, and you're not alone. Here, you'll find real tools and honest conversations to help you feel capable, steady, and like yourself again. Here's your host, Candace David, a fellow busy brain who believes life doesn't have to run perfectly to run well.
So the other day, I walked into my garage to grab a Coke. We keep a fridge out there, so I opened the door from the house, stepped into the garage, and as I turned left toward the fridge, there it is. This bag, sitting on a shelf. And immediately my brain goes, oh, right, the clothes. Now let me back up for a second. Earlier this year, my family went on a work trip with my husband. We just tagged along, and we had to go to Wisconsin in January. If you live in Wisconsin, I genuinely don't understand how you do that. It was below zero the entire time we were there, you guys. It was terrible. And my kids, they do not own the clothes for that kind of weather because we live somewhere kind of normal where the air doesn't hurt your face just by being outside. And I didn't want to go buy a bunch of snow gear that they would wear for exactly 1 week and then grow out of before next winter. So I asked one of my friends if she had any winter clothes we could borrow. She's one of those people who always has the right stuff, like organized, prepared, winter gear for every size child. And she was super gracious and said yes. So we borrow the clothes. The trip goes great, or at least it happens. We come home and I do the responsible thing. I wash everything, fold everything, put it all back in the bag. The bag is packed, completely ready to go back to her. All I need to do is text her. Just a quick text. Hey, I've got your clothes. Thanks so much. How do you want to get them? That's it. 10 seconds. But then life keeps happening because she lives about 25 minutes north of me. I work south. She works near her house. So our normal overlap is church on Sundays, except we've been inconsistent lately since we're moving and people have been sick and family's been in town. And then we usually have dinner together on Thursdays with this friend and her family, but our house has been on the market and you can't exactly host dinner when strangers might call to ask if they can walk through your house at any moment. So every time I walk into the garage, I see this bag. And every time I see this bag, I think, oh yeah, I need to text her. And then I don't. Days go by, then weeks. At one point, we were reorganizing the garage because of the move, and I actually pick up the bag. Like, I physically touch it. And I think, okay, I'm going to put this somewhere I can't miss it. So I move it. I hang it right at eye level on a rack, directly in the path between the garage door and my car door. So now every single time I walk into the garage, open the door, there it is, the bag. Just staring at me. Haunting me, really. And my brain goes, oh wow, you still haven't texted her. Every day, walk in, see the bag. Yeah, I need to do that. Walk out. Still haven't done it. And this goes on for a month, a full month. The clothes are washed, packed, ready. I literally moved the bag to make sure I would remember, and I still haven't sent the text. Then one morning, my phone buzzes, and it's that friend. She's doing spring cleaning, because of course she is. She's putting away all the winter gear. Why not? And she needs the clothes back. Totally fair. Because by this point, I have had these clothes, remember, for a full month, which is absurd. They're ready to return, and I haven't even sent the text. So now I have to respond. And I'm standing there in my kitchen looking at my phone thinking, oh my gosh, of course you need them back. I have them. They're ready. And we start trying to figure out logistics. Maybe Sunday at church. She can just grab them from my car. Except we're not going to church this Sunday because we have family in town. And I haven't told her that part yet. And so now I'm standing there thinking, oh my word, how did something that would have taken 10 seconds a month ago turn into this whole awkward situation? And if you're listening to this thinking, yep, I've absolutely done something like that, you are not alone. Before I walk you through the do-over for this moment, quick question. Are you driving, folding laundry, or doing like 12 other things while you're listening right now? Yeah, same. So instead of trying to remember everything from this episode, I made you a one-page do-over download. Just go to mybusybrain.com/join and I'll send it straight to your inbox. All right, let's walk through the do-over for this moment. Okay, if that moment felt a little familiar, you're definitely not alone. And quick thing before we keep going. If this podcast has been helpful for you, leaving a quick rating review helps other busy brains who feel behind find their way here too. Thank you. If you've already done that, it means a lot. All right, let's pause there for a second. Because if you've ever had a moment like that, where something small sat there undone for way longer than it should have, your brain usually goes to one place. What is wrong with me? It feels ridiculous. You had the clothes. They were washed. They were packed. The only thing left was sending a text. 10 seconds. And yet, the longer it sat there, the harder it felt to start. And this is the moment where your brain starts doing math it was never meant to do. Not math about the task. Math about the gap. How long has this been sitting here? Why didn't I just do this earlier? This is definitely awkward now. What is she going to think? And suddenly, something that was originally, again, a 10-second task starts feeling like this weird, uncomfortable project. And not because the task changed, but because the distance between where you are and where you think you should be got bigger. This shows up in so many places. I hear about it from people all the time. Sometimes it's a text you meant to answer, and now it's been 3 days. And the longer it sits there, the more awkward it feels to respond. Sometimes it's a small thing on your to-do list that would take 5 minutes. But now your brain is like, ugh, I should have done that already. While simultaneously reminding you that your boss or coworker are waiting on that update. Sometimes it's an apology you meant to give, or a quick clarification conversation you need to have. Nothing huge, just a small moment that sat there, a little longer than expected. And this simple thing starts feeling emotionally complicated. If you've ever had something like this, sitting in your own version of the garage, where now it's been long enough that it feels too awkward to touch, you are very much not the only person whose brain does this. And when that gap grows, your brain does something really predictable. It stalls. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care. Your brain is reacting to the emotional cost of restarting. Because most of the time, what feels heavy isn't the task itself. It's the moment of re-entering the relationship. And a big part of what's happening here has to do with how our brains are wired for connection. Humans are wired to belong. Your brain is constantly scanning your relationships for signs that things are okay, that you're still in good standing, that you didn't accidentally mess something up. So when something small sits for a little while, a text, an update, a thing you said you would do, your brain starts imagining the moment you re-enter that interaction. What are they going to think? Did I let them down? Is this going to be super awkward now? And for some people, especially busy brains or ADHD-esque brains, that sensitivity to rejection or disapproval can be even stronger. But honestly, you don't need ADHD for this part to happen. At the end of the day, this is just a very human instinct. We want to stay connected. We want to stay in good standing with the people in our lives. And when our brain thinks that connection might be a little shaky, it tries to avoid the moment that might confirm it. Which is how something like sending a 10-second text can suddenly start to feel weirdly high stakes. And when the restart feels heavy enough, your brain quietly decides, maybe we'll deal with this later. Which is exactly how those small things slowly turn into month-long awkward situations in the garage. And the good news, there's actually a very simple way to break that cycle. The problem isn't that you didn't send the text. The problem is that the gap made restarting feel unsafe. All right, so if you recognize that moment, the moment where something small has been sitting there just a little too long and now restarting feels weirdly heavy, first, I want you to hear this. That stall your brain does right there, that's not a character flaw. That's not you being irresponsible or forgetful or unreliable. That's your brain reacting to the emotional weight of restarting after a gap. And once that gap gets big enough, your brain starts treating the restart like a bigger problem than the task itself. Which is why the longer something sits, the harder it feels to begin. But here's the encouraging part. You don't actually have to fix the whole situation to break that cycle. You just need a way to restart the moment. And that's where today's do-over comes in. So what do we actually do with this moment? Because the goal here is not to become a person who never falls behind, simply because that's just not real life, okay? Messages get missed, tasks slide, life gets busy. The real skill isn't perfect follow-through. The real skill is learning how to restart without turning that gap into a character judgment. So here's the do-over for this situation. I call it the restart do-over. It has 3 small pieces, not 3 complicated steps, just 3 tiny shifts that make restarting possible again. Step 1, notice the gap math. That spiral your brain starts doing. How long has this been sitting here? Why didn't I just do this earlier? This is definitely awkward now. That's not a motivation problem. That's your brain reacting to the distance between where you are and where you think you should be. And the bigger that distance feels, the heavier restarting feels. So the first move is simply this. Name what your brain is doing. Oh yeah, my brain is doing some gap math. That little bit of awareness takes the pressure down a notch. Because now the problem isn't you. It's the gap your brain is reacting to. Step 2, reopen the loop. Not fix everything, not solve the whole situation, just reopen it. In my case, the loop wasn't returning the clothes. It wasn't coordinating schedules. It wasn't even figuring out the perfect handoff plan. The only step that mattered was this. Send the text. Something simple like, hey, I have the clothes. They're washed, packed, and ready for you. Sorry it took me a minute to reach out. When would you like to grab them? That's it. Because the moment that message goes out, the loop is open again. The awkward silence disappears, and your brain stops carrying the emotional weight of the delay. Step 3, let momentum do the rest. Once the loop is open again, something really interesting happens. The situation usually starts moving on its own. Your friend replies, your coworker responds, the conversation restarts. And suddenly, the thing that felt stuck for weeks is just moving again. And not because you solved everything, but because you restarted the interaction. And that's the part our brains forget. Momentum doesn't come from finishing everything. Momentum comes from restarting something small. And this works in so many places. A text you forgot to answer, an update someone is waiting on. The restart do-over isn't about fixing the whole situation. It's about reopening the loop so your brain doesn't have to carry the weight of it anymore. And once that loop is open again, your brain can finally relax enough to move forward. Here's your permission slip for today. You're allowed to restart something even if it's been sitting longer than you wish it had. That gap doesn't disqualify you. You don't have to earn the right to begin again. You can reopen the loop today. You're allowed to make restarting small. You don't have to solve everything at once. Remember, momentum doesn't come from perfect follow-through. It comes from tiny restarts. Send the text. Open the conversation. Take the first 5-minute step. That's enough to get things moving again. If today's do-over hit home for you, would you like me to send it to you? Every episode of the show comes with a 1-page do-over download, a simple guide that walks you through the reset we talked about today. So instead of trying to remember the steps later, you'll have it right there whenever your brain needs a reset. Just go to mybusybrain.com/join and I'll send it straight to your inbox. All right, my fellow busy brain friends, take a breath, give yourself a little grace, and remember, you can always start again. That's what a do-over really is. Not perfection, just permission. Talk soon.